In the world of Katie,
Yeah.
the framing has started.
Yay!
And the reason why, because you're probably hearing this episode hopefully tomorrow. Hopefully at like
Yay.
noonish, I want to say. It's Thursday right now for me. Tomorrow is the episode drop for this. But I was doing research inside of the camper and I'm sitting there and all of a sudden the Wi-Fi's gone. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And then it would come back on. I'm like, huh? Okay. And then it would go back off. And I'm like, okay. So I come
You
walking out
can't do your
here
job.
because it's like downpour raining and like lightning starting to go. I'm like, I gotta go make sure that the computers are off because this is $6,000 sitting on this desk right here. I'm like, one lightning strike will fucking fry it all. So I'm like, okay, I gotta go make sure computers are off. And I go walking out here to turn off computers and stuff. And as soon as I get out here, the guy that's doing our framing goes, oh, did you get scared? I'm like, no. I'm like, I needed to come out here and make sure. Oh, chest in the park? Why? I don't want to play chess in the park.
It's
Discord?
time to play chess in the park.
I guess so. This is the
I mean,
podcast
what did I
now.
just say? I said chess, not chess.
Chest in the park.
Chess in the
Anyway,
park.
any
Boulder rules.
anyway, I
I'm
come
just
out
kidding.
here. God damn it. Oh, okay, this is how the night's gonna start. But anyway, I come walking out here. He's like, "Oh, did you get scared? We watched a tree like bend over on itself." I'm like, "No, I wasn't too worried." Like I looked outside, I was like, "Oh, that's a little intense. Maybe I should go make sure that the computers are off real quick." And I asked him like, "Hey, did you guys possibly unplug the Wi-Fi at one point?" And he's like, "Oh, we keep flipping the breaker, but is that the Wi-Fi over there?" I'm like, and it's like unplugged. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, no, I need that." Like I'm working inside.
Oh, so they were just like, oh yeah, let's just take this down.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, we've got 4 outlets over here, and 2 of the outlets are on one breaker, and the other 2 are on another breaker. However, the breaker only like handles, I want to say like 20 amps or something like that. So things like immediately just go if you have too much on one switch. I learned that immediately when I started gaming out here because I was like, oh my God, I can't have the heater on and I can't burn coals at the same time. I got to turn that off in order to do this. It's a shit show. But I'm like, I go walking back inside and they start cycling again. I told them, like, don't worry about it. I'll do it in the evening while you guys are gone. So it took me a little bit longer to get everything typed up and researched out and make sure that everything's taken care of because I was doing it in the dark, in the night. And then I'm like, every noise that I hear, I'm like, granted,
Murder.
at least this isn't like a serial killer case because I'd be like, I don't really want to do this at 4 a.m.
Thinking about people stalking in the woods.
Oh, absolutely.
You're like, nope, none of that.
And it doesn't help, like, I have to come outside to go get a soda because we have, like, a beverage fridge outside. So I'm like, when I come outside to get a soda, I'm like, I hear things in the woods. I'm like, who's that? What is that? And it's logically a deer, most likely. But in
It's logic.
my poor criminology brain, I'm like, it says real keys in the woods. He's coming for me.
Do you guys have foxes?
We do. I haven't
Yeah.
seen any yet, but my neighbors have one around their area. We have coyotes too. And then we also have turkeys. We have one bear. Um, a lot of fireflies because they were out tonight. My God. But yeah, it's peaceful for the
Nice.
most part. I'm like, I'm not super worried about treading between the camper and like the building at
Good.
most times. I'm like,
I know foxes. What was it? What they sound like children that are laughing. Have you ever heard that? When
yeah.
they're like giggling at each other in the woods, and
Mm-hmm.
you're just like, why are there children out there?
Are there children out there? I mean, we also have mountain lions too, which my mom's
Ooh,
like, they're
no.
not here. And one of the guys that came and did the leveling and like the digging and will actually be digging my basement out hopefully soon, knock on wood. Um He's like, have you heard a mountain lion out here yet? I'm like, I fucking told you they were here. I'm like, yes, I've heard one. Because they literally
Oh,
sound like somebody being murdered off in the woods. And I kind of just went,
mm-hmm.
oh, okay. I'm like, I had to stand
Just
there for a moment.
breaches.
I'm like, yeah, that's a mountain lion. Okay. My mom's like, you're hearing stuff. You're wigging out. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure I just heard that correctly. I know what that sound is.
It's pretty terrifying. Did I tell you about the time that I was hiking and like there was one like 20 feet away from me and it growled at me? Yeah, I still have not recovered from that.
I think we talked about that on one of the episodes. I think
Yeah.
in the Colorado one for Keith Reinhardt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that was terrifying.
I don't blame you. They're absolutely terrifying. I'm like, I was watching something on TikTok the other day. This lady was like, "Hello, kitty, hello," and like she aimed the camera up, and it's just a mountain lion like staring down at her, and she goes, "That's not a cat," and like closes her door immediately.
She's like, that's a little too big. I like the video of the girl who's just like running around the woods and then she pans to a log and there's a cub, a mountain lion cub on it, and she just takes off like running, which like you're not supposed to
You're
do.
not supposed
But
to do that.
yeah, but she was like, "Oh my god, I bet the mom was stalking me."
Yeah, just a heads up. If you do see a mountain lion, like the best thing that you can do is don't take your eyes off of it. Like back up slowly. It's just
Yeah.
probably being
Oh yeah.
territorial at the most part. If it starts charging you, start make loud noises. They don't like it.
Make yourself look big.
Make yourself
I
look
took my
big.
backpack. God. Yeah, I took my backpack and like lifted it above my head so that way I looked like I was taller
You're like, I
and
am a
just backed
giant.
away. Oh my gosh.
It's
But I
probably
also
like,
learned
what
when
is this
adrenaline
scary
kicks
thing?
in,
Mm-hmm.
you can run for as long as you need to.
Adrenaline's great.
Oh yeah. As soon as I got far enough away, I like turned around and sprinted to my car. But I
Mm-hmm.
was like a few miles into the trail already.
Yeah.
It took me no time to get to my car, I'll tell you that. And I did not miss a single step. I didn't twist my ankle. I didn't slip on a rock.
You're just like, screw this. I am out of here.
Oh yeah, the primal monkey brain was like front and center.
Oh my god. Yeah, no. I'm like, I heard that. I was like, the likelihood that somebody is actually getting murdered out here is pretty low. And on my property, probably even lower because why bring somebody out into the middle of freaking nowhere and into like a ravine at that? Because there's just like this huge, like downslope into the river or the little stream that we have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm standing here. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go back inside and lock the door.
I would.
Yep. I'm like, the bear, absolutely not scared of him. He's too timid. He's so freaking timid. I've seen him 3 times since I've been here. First time was when my mom and I came to check out the property like in July of last year. Like the second time was me in the winter and I just barely saw him kind of like moping about. I'm like, oh, we just came out for food and then we're going back into hibernation. And then the last time he was like in the backyard area and I went, "Hey bear," and he flipped and went running. I'm like, "Okay."
Nice. That's what you want. That's what you want from the bear.
That's what you want from the bear.
He
Bear in the
starts running
woods,
the other
man
way.
in the woods, bear in the woods.
Ooh,
I will take the bear. Thank you very much.
the bear. The bear question.
Yes. The bear question that's trending everywhere right now. I'll take the bear. Thank you very
That
much.
was pretty funny. Oh my gosh. Well, we talked about that. That guy who murdered those. Well, he didn't murder him. He like murdered the two kids, right? The boyfriend, girlfriend, or the husband and wife, and then he tried to murder those two grown men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that were able to like take off in their car. It's like I think about that case every time I see that question.
Yeah. I'm like,
I'm like,
nope.
oh,
But anyways, before we get started, while we understand that some individuals listen for the entertainment aspect of true crime, it's important to remember that these are real people with families and friends who may still be suffering from their loss. This story is not meant to open old wounds or cause further emotional damage to those involved. We remind you, please be respectful and do not dox or contact those involved with cases. The case discussed on this podcast today may be disturbing to some listeners, and listener discretion is advised. Once again, I don't think we have any trigger warnings for this episode, but I do once again want to give a big shout out to the book Sunk Without a Sound, The Tragic Colorado River Honeymoon of Glen and Bessie Hyde by Brad Dimmock. Like I said in the first episode, this man went out of his way to get first and secondhand accounts from family, search and rescue personnel, and witnesses. I'm not reading verbatim from this book, and I want to note here that we're just going to take it basically up to the end of what would be the search and rescue. And then from there, like, if you want more information, go read the book because there's a lot to pull through and there's a lot to, like, unpack there. And there's more information, obviously. So, when we had last left off, Glen and Bessie had returned to the scow, untied it, and cast off, leaving the small camp at Hermit Rapids behind. And they dropped down into the unruly waves of Hermit Rapids and vanished from sight. Now, Glen had told R.C., his father, originally that he should expect a telegram from Needles, California on December 9th, which would be Glen's 30th birthday. From here, the plan was for the honeymooners to meet with Jeanne and R.C. in Los Angeles, California, where they would spend the holiday season. However, December 9th came and went without a single word, no sightings, and no clues since the fateful dark evening at Hermit Rapids 22 days earlier. Glen had set a outside date, however, for the latest the two would be expected to return or arrive at Needles, and that was December 11th. Now, R.C. sent a letter to William Haley, Bessie's father, stating, "I did not wait until they were late, for I had been afraid the whole time. When they did not telegraph on the day set to arrive, I left." So on the morning of December 12th, when there was still no word, R.C. left from Las Vegas, Nevada via train, and in the next week, he made inventory of the lower Colorado River, trying to find any clues about the missing honeymooners. R.C. gathered information that the two had been at the river mile marker 95, nearly 375 miles from Needles. From the Hermit Rapids, the river is tightly hemmed by the Grand Canyon Rapids for 180 miles, at which point the Grand Wash Cliffs break away to the north and south. From here, the river leaves the Colorado Plateau Canyon country and enters a jagged basin and range which Nevada is characteristically known for nearly 200 miles of the river, which nowadays it lies beneath Lake Mead in the Mojave, where it winds through craggy peaks and barren basins of the Mojave Desert. Now, R.C. went in and assaulted this landscape, which, mind you, is no easy task to begin with, and he actually made his way down to Griggs Ferry, which would have been the next stop for anyone to see Glen or Bessie at. And the man, William Grigg, told R.C. when he asked if he had seen the couple or not, that he had not seen Glen or Bessie. Now, while R.C. is obviously panicking, since Griggs Ferry is about a week upstream from Needles, this would mean that Glen's not just running a little behind on schedule, but he is very, very late. R.C. then returns to St. Thomas and then takes a train back to Las Vegas, where he begins to launch a full barrage on the government, pleading with them for their help to search the river via airplane. He sends a telegram to Governor William Borah of Idaho, and then starts reaching out to anyone that she knows, including aid from Glen's old college fraternity, Sigma Nu, who also contacted William Borah for aid. Now, the first national press coverage for this case was in Parkersburg, West Virginia, which told of how William Haley was planning to meet with Governor Howard Gore to ask for an airplane search of the river. Gore reaches out to the Secretary of War, Dwight Davis, to request a search be done. Similarly, William Borah had also made a call to Congressman Smith and French of Idaho, who then met with President Calvin Coolidge to press for a search to be done, which I'm like, God damn, we getting the president involved. Holy shit. On the morning of December 17th of 1928, Secretary Dwight Davis ordered Major General John Hines, commander of the Ninth Army Corps, in San Francisco to commence an aerial inspection of the river. RC notified the Mojave Native American tribe on their reservation nearly 5 miles north of Needles, California, to please keep a lookout for any trace of the couple's trip, and that a $1,000 reward leading to the recovery of Glen and Bessie would be available. Now, RC is in Peach Springs, Arizona, and made this basically the center of his operation, which this area also happens to be the headquarters for the Wallapai Native American Reservation. Now, while he's here, he's requesting people who know the river to search the river. One particular man he asked was actually afraid by Hyde's accounts to run the rapids below Diamond Creek. However, the newspaper did announce the next day that 2 men were going to go down and search from Pierce's Ferry just below the Grand Canyon to Needles. Hyde does confide that he didn't expect them to find anything, considering he'd spoken to a man at Griggs Ferry who told them that he hadn't seen Glen or Bessie pass through. However, there was always still a chance that something was missed or they missed them on their way through. Now, Deputy Sheriff John Nelson was also very quick to offer his aid in helping the search for Glen and Bessie. He was actually so well known for being a person to go out and looking for missing individuals in the area that he actually gained the respect of both the Anglos and the Wallapai people alike. RC then telegraphed Emery Kolb at the South Rim asking, could you be induced to search the river with boat? Altovar to Diamond Creek or farther. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced Altovar. However, Hyde received no reply as Emery was 200 miles south in Phoenix, Arizona for the winter season at the advice of his doctors as he wasn't in great health. RC finally got some luck with one Bob Francie, who had been a part of the previous river trip down the Grand Canyon, that he already had a boat and he would go. Bob, in turn, got a hold of his friend Jack Harbin, who helped him down the river. Additionally, one Pat Petraw joined this group in heading down the river. However, from what I can decipher, Pat Petraw isn't really river ready. He doesn't really know what he's getting himself into. He's just there. RC and Bob worked out a deal. He'd pay Bob $500 to go 70 miles to Havasu Creek, where the national park ended. Anything beyond that would cost another $500. With that, the next morning of December 18th, the boat Bright Angel was packed and the two, Bob and Jack, prepared for departure. And by late that evening, the three, Bob, Jack, and Pat, left, heading as far as Hermit Rapid to the Hermit Rapid camp for the night. Now, mind you, just to give you an idea of how fast some of these sections of water are, when they pass through Hermit Rapids, Jesus Christ.
Hermit Rapids.
Hermit Rapids. When they passed through Hermit Rapids, which was low when the Hyde couple passed through, it was lower and running at approximately 5,500 cubic feet per second, which is absolutely fucking terrifying to think of how fast this water is going. On the canyon rim, RC launched another desperate telegraph to Emery Kolb in Phoenix to tell him of Francie's search going on and to see if Kolb would build a boat at Diamond Creek and search from there down, stressing how important this was to RC that Emery made the trip. Now, Emery is in Phoenix, and according to an interview nearly 50 years later, he'd been there to see a friend who was dying of cancer when they discovered that he should probably have his appendix removed due to his low blood pressure. Now, I'm not really sure if that operation happened or not, But Emery received the telegraph on the morning of December 18th and was back at the South Rim by that evening. So, in my mind, I'd like to think that this man had his appendectomy and went, yeah, I can go riverboating.
Some people are like that.
Some people are like that. I mean, I believe my dad told me that my grandmother actually was like on a hike when her appendix ruptured, and her father was a surgeon at the time, so they just fucking did it out in the out in the wild and got it out. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Wow. He's like, come here, sweetie.
Come here,
We'll take it
sweetie.
out.
We'll take it out.
He
We
like
got
pulls
this.
out like one of the gas station pocket knives that has his name in it. He's like, bite down on this. It's like a rock.
It's like a rock. They'll be fine. You're fine.
Don't
Now,
break your teeth.
in Flagstaff, Arizona, private planes were scheduled to fly to the Grand Canyon to aid in the search, but due to foul weather, the airport basically had shut down. On the flip side, in California, Major General Hines had delays for the plane that he intended to send out, and he was really reluctant to send out these two smaller single engine planes to begin the search down in the Colorado River because A, they don't have the best steering, and they can't maneuver as fast. So it's likely that they'll crash. So he's basically afraid that these planes are going to crash and he's going to lose his men. But he sends them anyway. Each of the planes had a mechanic on board, along with clothes and supplies if they happened to spot the Hyde couple in dire straits. They refueled in Needles and also made their way up the river, flying low enough and trying to see if they could spot anything, but just high enough to still remain safe while flying. Now, just below these aircrafts, dozens of Mojave Native Americans have also joined the search, working their way to the river along various trails. By nightfall, the planes made land in Las Vegas, Nevada, where they'd refuel and return to searching in the morning. In the surface world, for the search in Glen and Bessie Hyde, it was making headlines across the country. Particularly, RC's commitment to finding the two and how many people he'd gathered for the searches at this point, not to mention the people on the river, ones doing the searching and the surrounding land searches, and the federal enforced aerial search that was currently ongoing. So it's making national headlines. Then on the morning of December 19th, after some major rapids and going back and forth, pilots caught sight of a boat adrift in the river. They circled and swooped down to get a better look. However, they needed a positive identification for this boat. RC was still kind of organizing the ground searches and stuff, so he couldn't really go do this himself. However, somebody else had seen the boat who wasn't really doing anything quite yet, and that would be one Emery Kolb. So he climbs into the rear cockpit of one of these planes, and at the mile marker near 237, they spot the scow still in its previous position, apparently stuck. There was no question in Emery's mind, this was the Hyde scow. The morning of December 20th saw the planes returning to Riverside, California. They dipped low enough to see Bob, Jack, and Pat's party approaching base camp some 15 miles from Hermit Rapids and dropped them a message informing them that the scow had been found. Then, as they neared Diamond Creek, Sheriff Nelson's search party on foot was spotted working along the Tonto platform, which is a shale bench atop of the Granite Gorge, which allows hiking throughout most of the Grand Canyon. When they also dropped a note to this party stating the boat's location on pasteboard. And after receiving it, they returned to Peach Springs as there was no way for them to get down to the boat from up top on this shelf, basically. Emery was planning to go down to the boat, and Ellsworth Kolb recalls seeing the news in Los Angeles papers that stated Emery would be going down to Diamond Creek via Peach Springs to organize a search. Ellsworth offers his help and said that he'd like to join him, and Emery immediately accepts, telegraphing Ellsworth to catch the next train east and meet the party in Peach Springs. On December 20th, officials of Grand Canyon Park issued a warning to all thrill seekers to hunt elsewhere than the Colorado River for their adventures, noting how the river has often caused disasters. But the Hyde episode has magnified the dangers and caused them to issue the warning. Now, I think it's important that we note here that this is probably also a warning for people just to not come and try to do this to claim the reward money, because people do that and they don't know what they're doing, and then they get themselves into trouble, or more tragedies and accidents happen as a result.
As anyone would do. They're like, holy shit, $5,000, which is like $1,000,000 back then.
Mm-hmm.
I could retire.
I could
Honey, give me a piece
retire.
of driftwood.
We got this. We'll be fine. And it's like, no.
They're like floating down the river, holding onto the wood, just spiraling out of control.
Now, the Associated Press reported that the Kolbs thought that the hides might be found under the canyon rim near the wrecked scow, but there was a possibility that the two were swept to their deaths in the rapids or current. And just to pause here again, I have to say this because the current in some of these areas is fucking crazy. In the Colorado River and coming out of it, there are pockets that may look calm and normal, but there's an undercurrent that will completely pull you under and hold your ass down. My friend Sierra and I were talking about this a couple days ago of how there's an area at Crystal Beach in like outside of Lake Havasu that will fucking do this to you. Like, please wear a life jacket and know what you're doing. Like, don't go into the water if you don't know what you're doing.
So when the water gets low at Lake Horsetooth, they have people on boats patrolling the water just to make sure you don't swim underneath. And I remember I was out there one day with my friends, and there were these girls swimming in the lake, and one of them went underwater, and this guy goes, "Hey, don't let her do that." And then like they see him coming and they all go underwater.
They're just like,
trying to swim away from him. And so I'm guessing that they were swimmers. That's not a bear on a boat.
That's not a bear on a boat. That's a man.
Yeah, and so he dries like within the proximity, but then like the girls are already gone. They're fine. They've all gotten out of the water, but I don't think they know that that's why. I think they think that, oh, they just don't want us to have fun. No cliff diving near these jagged rocks. No.
Mm-hmm. No. There's some awkward fucking currents that you need to be aware of. That's why I don't like going swimming in lakes.
I don't mind it. Kind of grubby sometimes.
They're just nasty. I don't like it. I'd rather go swim in the ocean, let a riptide drag my ass out. At least I know how to get back with that. You gotta like swim in a zigzag. You'll be fine.
Yay!
You might be really tired when you get to shore, but zigzag it. You'll be okay. Now, RC believed that the two would be found along the shore, noting how Glen had planned it in the case of anything going wrong, or if Bessie wanted to be done, or they're forced to quit the river, that they would leave the scow and remain in the canyon until found. Now, in another report, the Native Americans were currently mushing through snow on the canyon rim in an effort to find some trace that the couple may have climbed out of the canyon on the cliffs and began the dangerous journey southward towards civilization. However, the biggest headlines throughout the country that morning regarding the Colorado River were no longer about the Hyde's disappearances. It was about the Boulder Dam Act.
Dun dun.
So, this act would see the construction of the Hoover Dam in order to help flood control, and additionally would help to provide power to many western regions in the United States. However, this would aid in the creation of Lake Mead, which would eventually flood every bit of the river from where the Hyde scow was found to Las Vegas. On December 21st in Peach Springs, Emery Kolb, Jimmy Brooks, and RC finished buying lumber to build a second boat. However, when they were getting ready to transport this lumber, Emery noticed that he actually still had a boat on hand that could possibly just be repaired and sent downriver with them on it, and they decided to cancel the lumber delivery and salvage the boat and take it down the rapids. So they began patching this boat on December 22nd using wood floors and doors from old shacks nearby. On the same day, word comes in from the search party downriver that there is nothing to be found, specifically no footprints in the snow that had lined the south rim. So there's no sign that they might have climbed out of the canyon and started a walk. However, an eerie story does emerge at the same time, too, from one Merle Emery, one of the best known boatmen in the lower Colorado River. He told about how about 6 miles away from Boulder Canyon, he'd seen a leather jacket float by in the river. However, the current had been too swift to retrieve it and it just basically floats on by. But he put out a bulletin to look for any other debris coming down the river. On December 23rd, the Kolb brothers deemed their boat ready to go, and on December 24th, they pushed off with Jemmy Brooks in tow. Additionally, on this evening of December 24th, when Pat Petraw was making his way into the Grand Canyon Village half starved after Jack Harbin had basically run him off for being ill prepared for the trip and eating too much.
Perfect. Put down that slice of pizza.
Don't eat my fish. That's mine.
That's my fish.
That chef fish so juicy,
It's not even cooked.
That's
That's what these teeth were made for.
That's what these teeth were made for. You can eat it raw. I wouldn't do that. Oh my goodness. So Pat told the press of his 30-mile river trip and seeing something. Glen Hyde's footprints, where he'd possibly scouted major rapids at Ruby Rapids and Bass Rapids in particular. But aside from that, no other clues had been found. Additionally, Bob Francie and Jack Harbin were expected to arrive at Havasu Creek early into the following week, which means that their trip is basically almost over. On the morning of December 25th, Christmas Day, the Kolb's search team found the scow at just above mile 237. It was eerily silent in a pool of calm water some 30 feet away from the shore. The boat was pulled ashore, where Emery could film Jimmy and Ellsworth boarding the boat and searching it. The boat itself sat low in the river with about a foot of water in the low end of the boat. Its sweep oars still in place, giving it the appearance that Bessie and Glen had simply paused for a moment. All the Hyde's gear was still in place. Glen's 33 stood in a corner of the boat. One of the gunwales of the scow had a total of 42 notches carved into it, one for each day that they had been on their trip. And the bowline stretched from the front of the scow taut into the river. Jimmy recalls that the rope was fastened in a crevasse in the rocks and that they had given it their all and everyone had basically come and given it a stiff pull, but there was absolutely no give and they didn't know how deep the water was to basically go in and try to unknot it, and it's dangerous to do that. Now, the water that was inside of the ship was theorized to be from a number of different things, or could have been a number of different things. It could have been caused by damage to the boat. Maybe some of the water the Hydes had in their last rapids got on board, or from it simply just sitting there and possibly leaking or taking on water in environmental factors. Regardless, though, the boat was searched for clues and items were unloaded, even though some of the gear in the lower part of the boat had been soaked through and with the temperatures dropping had frozen to the boat. Inside were Glen and Bessie's hiking boots and warm coats. There was some money, Bessie's camera along with 6 rolls of film, an untouched baked ham, a sack of flour, a old bed spring and some blankets, a small suitcase which held some of Bessie's better clothing, the copy of Emery Kolb's book that he'd given them, and Bessie's journal, which was wet, but luckily still legible. Now, the journal was cryptic at best, and the last entry appeared to be on Friday, November 30th. And using the tallies on the gunwale, Kolb theorized that the Hydes had passed through Diamond Creek just before they'd vanished. Now, the group took as much as they could from the boat, and with them being unable to dislodge the bowline, it was cut, which in later years Emery was highly criticized for, as there was thought to have perhaps been a body at the end of it. And Emery himself would also later feel remorse for this act. Additionally, the thought that the Hydes had been alive somewhere outside of earshot plagued on him, as there was a possibility of them returning to the scow, and with the boat gone, their only means of escape was gone.
Wow. I mean, that's also kind of wishful thinking, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the hope that they're out there. But
Yeah. Yes, it is.
yeah, it's like, it's wishful thinking that, like, oh, they're alive, but it's also like, oh my god, I just doomed them.
Yeah. If they do happen to be.
They do happen to be walking about. I just really screwed them over.
They can even hang out for a day. See if they're just getting fish. There
Nah.
for 20 minutes. They're like ransack this boat.
Well, let's go. And they literally, like, for some of the clothing items, they just put them on. They were like, okay, we're taking this back with us. Like some of the warmer, like, mink fur coats, they were like, yeah, we'll just wear this back. And there's photos of them, like, coming back with, like, clothing items on, just trying to salvage whatever they could from that boat.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. The scow was released into the next section of the rapids, where it smashed a sweep on a wall and then wedged between two rocks inextractably. Now, the Kolbs and Jimmy had some trouble on their way out when they tried to make it out of the rapids, and their boat actually flips over. Thankfully, everyone makes it back on board, and they make it down to Lava Cliff Rapids, where they're rescued, and they set their boat free to crash in the following rapids. They're like, okay, screw this, we're done. The group then handed over Glen's gun, Bessie's journal, and anything else that had survived the boat's flip in the separation rapids to R.C. Hyde. They had little encouragement as well for R.C. Hyde as to the survival of his son and his daughter in law. Considering the items found on the scow, it was unlikely that the two had hiked out. Additionally, with food and money still on board, it became very apparent that if they had left, it was not intentional. RC, still holding on to hope, though, continued to launch searches, and the day after Christmas, a plane that was sent out to look for the Hydes sent a message back to their home base stating party sighted from plane, which led the main office to jump to conclusions that the Hydes had been found, and they alerted the media, who published the story quickly, which unfortunately
Oh.
that's short lived, as it's clarified that the party that they saw was the Francie party and not the Hydes. Now,
Mm.
in good old media fashion, the story begins to become twisted and mishandled in the following days, including fabrications and contradictory accounts as to what may have happened, with some saying the Hydes are alive, some saying the Hydes are dead, some saying that Emery Kolb says they're dead, some saying that Emery Kolb thinks that they're alive, some saying that RC thinks they're dead. It's all over the fucking place. Like, nobody has the same story, and I can tell you right now that that still fucking happens to this day. However, the one continued note through this was that RC was not giving up on finding his son. On December 29th, he and John Nelson made their way on foot to the mouth of Diamond Creek. On the flip side, though, Francie's party made it to Havasu Creek, where they made contact and planned to meet up with RC and Nelson back at Diamond Creek, telling them basically that they're going to look everywhere for any type of items that they may have left behind, any camp stuff, like just search the area where the boat was found, like and above. On the morning of December 30th of 1928, Bob Francie and Jack Hairbin scouted the 217-mile rapid where they found Glen's tracks, like they were at every major rapid prior. However, he noted that the last couple miles it had only been Glen's tracks that were visible and Bessie's hadn't been seen. Now, RC theorized that perhaps Glen and Bessie had left the boat and had possibly gone up the North Ridge and not the South. Now, the difference between these two is that the North Ridge is way far away from civilization. Like, we're talking over 100 miles away before you see anyone. And with that, he's like, we need to organize a search party for the north side of the Grand Canyon. Now, the
Hug a
American
tree.
hug a tree. There's no trees in the desert, Sarah. There are only cacti,
Oh,
and they hurt you.
hug a cactus.
Now, the American press took Emery Kolb to his word. He believed that the couple were dead, and they posted a small story in response. Mr. and Mrs. Glen Hyde, now lost in the canyon, certainly could not have been advised of their perils of such a honeymoon voyage. An anxious country watching the search with hope that they will be found and rescued also hopes that the advertisement given of the desperate character of this adventure will deter others. The Grand Canyon voyage is not to be undertaken without pressing reason. End quote. To which Jeanne fires back in outrage to this article, stating, Mr. and Mrs. Hyde were not a couple of foolhardy youngsters who decided on a trip down a river of which they knew comparatively nothing in search of a peaceful honeymoon. They had read all the available material concerning the river before they started. They knew just what they were attempting. End quote. Now, to save a little time, as we also have theories to discuss, RC does return several times, making his way down to the final camp of Glen and Bessie multiple times. Even when he's pushing his 70s, he's still going down. And he's actually taken Jeanne with him at one point, as well as William Haley, down to the campsite to basically see for themselves what's going on. And these two kind of serve this as like a memorial and saying goodbye when they're there. However, RC's still not giving up hope. Additionally, Bessie's notebook was handed off to Ellsworth Kolb to make a copy of so he could try to decipher her notes and possibly discover where the couple had last been at. Ellsworth discovered that Bessie was making tallies for how bad the rapids were, marking a 0 for rapids that weren't as bad or like riffles that aren't so bad. And then she'd mark a 1 for a major rapid and a dash for calm or flat water. However, by the 27th of November, Bessie begins to add a plus in her code, which was theorized to be landings they made along their way. The last journal entry on Friday of November 30th, most of the notes Bessie had made were 1s and sparse 0s. Now, unfortunately, the only possible factual written account that remains of Bessie's journal is that of Ellsworth Kolb, as Jeanne supposedly destroyed the original version after writing her own notes, which had much embellishment to them, and it was hard to discern fact from fiction.
That's too bad.
There's a theory from RC that Bessie's journal ended somewhere at Travertine Canyon. By 1931, the Great Depression hit the United States, and Glen and Bessie's story continued to fade from media spotlight. However, there was a spot that new boaters reached within Diamond Creek that had been missed on the original search. Within an old abandoned blacksmith shop was a carving. Glen and Bessie Hyde, November 31st of 1928. Now, it's under speculation if the signature is genuine or not. Additionally, November only has 30 days. So even if it is true, there's a mistype, and it's like, it's debated if this is the 30th or possibly December 1st that they actually arrived here. So Nelson also notes during the search for another victim in the river who wasn't wearing a life jacket when they went down that it is very, very rare for a life jacketless body to reappear from the river. Usually they get silted down in the mud and sand that gets turned up in the rapids.
Wow.
In 1938, RC was forced to give up the hunt. Much of his financial stability had withered with his original search efforts, and when the Great Depression hit, as well as the Dust Bowl drought, it ran him dry, forcing both RC and William Haley to accept something that no parent should ever have to fucking accept. They're dead. And with that, they return to work and try to make some form of themselves back and put themselves back together after losing their loved ones. Now, I can't directly remember what page this was on, and I couldn't find it when I was going back through and looking for notes, but there are some points going through RC's search where people are asking him, like, why are you just throwing money at this? Like, it doesn't solve the problem. It's not going to change anything. And he makes mention that Glen was his boy, and he'd had him by his side his whole life, at times every single day. And he didn't want to give up on him.
Poor baby.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Both of
Dad
them.
and son.
Dad and son.
They're both babies.
Well, it's like, I talked to my mom because we definitely go through a lot of missing persons cases on here. And she's like, I would turn hell and high water to find you. I'm like, I know you would. I'm like, it's something that nobody should ever have to go through. It really isn't. And it sucks that it happens. So, throughout the years, many stories of Glen and Bessie's survival withered, with most historians agreeing upon in the 1970s that the couple had likely perished in the river at or near mile 232. That is, until one October evening in 1971. Several passengers who had started the river trip 2 weeks earlier sat around a campfire, the smoke twirling and dancing in the cold air, when the river guide, Rick Petrello, began a story of Glen and Bessie Hyde. When the story ended with the same wonder of what happened, and there was a silence around the campfire for a long moment, a woman spoke up announcing, I know, I'm Bessie Hyde.
What?
Now, obviously, this is taken with a grain of salt by most individuals sitting around the campfire, but one O'Connor Dale, or OC, decides to play along with this gal. OC decides to ask the woman, well, what happened? There's a moment, and OC asks a different question. What did you do with Glen? And without looking up from the whirling fire, the wiry little woman responds, I killed him. To which, and understandably, OC goes, oh. Pauses for a moment and then asks, how did you do it? The woman is still gazing into the fire as she tells her story. Somewhere along here, we had a real bad fight and he beat me up. So, late that night, I got a knife and I stabbed him. The crowd went silent for a moment and OC asked, how did you get out? And she replied, after I drug him into the river and turned the boat loose, I started walking downstream because we knew Diamond Creek wasn't that far away. I finally reached the road and no one was there, so I walked up to Peach Springs and caught a Greyhound bus and then went back east. Like I said, most people took the story with a grain of salt, but after a while, people began to wonder, is this true? Because the woman looked to be around the same age that Bessie would be in the 1970s. Emery Kolb passed away on December 11th of 1976 after spending most of his life bickering with the National Park Service regarding his studio within the Grand Canyon. Ultimately, it was settled that Emery could run his studio, but it could not be sold or passed to an heir in the event of his death. 2 months following his passing, Emery Leinhart, Kolb's grandson, was packing his father's possessions and made a telephone call to Superintendent Merle Stitt, who at the time had been recovering from a heart attack and was still a little jittery after he had just dealt with a double homicide that occurred at the Powell Memorial a week earlier. So he's like trying to take it easy. And Emery calls him and he goes, I've got another body for you over here. Letting it just like sink in there for a moment. Like, he's like, what? Like, he's like, I'm not ready for this. Before Emery goes on to explain that it was nothing sensational, just an old skeleton in his grandfather's garage.
Just something, you know.
It's just something in his garage. It's fine.
Just
We all
a
have
little
skeletons in
something.
our garage, right? I've heard about them being in the closet.
Right.
Now, the state park's residential anthropologist, one Robert Euler, was sent to examine the remains, and Emery told Robert that his grandfather had found the skeleton many years earlier below the rim, recalling how his grandfather helped him assemble the remains in 1930 ish on the dining room table. To which I'm like, oh yeah, we're just gonna, Scrabble operation. This is family fun game night, right?
I found a corpse, Jimmy.
Let's put it back
Pop,
together
pop,
like a.
pop, put it back.
Oh my. I think if my grandfather walked in with a skeleton, I'd be like, where'd you get that? He'd be like, I don't know, but let's organize it. And I'd be like, yeah, okay.
You know, low key, if I found a human skull, there's a very big part of me that would want to just keep it. So I understand. I feel the same way about other bones that I find.
There are
I
nice
usually
enough
like,
anatomical skeletal bones that are fake that you can get. If you want them to look realistic, I will paint them for you. But please, dear God, do not keep
no,
real
I'm
human
not keeping
remains.
any corpses.
Sarah's just
Or
got a
sometimes I
bunch
think
of
about like,
corpses
what if
under
I
the
found
house.
like a head? Oh no.
What if
You're
I
just hiking
found a
along.
head? Oh no.
What if I just found a head? You know, it's been there for a
You
while.
know, that
No one's
actually
gonna miss it.
does fucking happen though, because I don't
I
know if
know.
most people know, but when the body decays, the first thing that usually will go missing from remains is the skull, because it'll roll down an embankment or get taken off, and it's so fragile and it rolls away so easily. Like most of the unidentified remains in, I want to say, Namus are usually found without their skull, which is crazy.
It just floats away.
Yeah, it disappears. They're so fragile. So these human remains were taken to a laboratory in Tucson, and the clothing and other artifacts were sent to the FBI. The Arizona Daily Sun in Flagstaff began to cover the case, and the thought was on everybody's mind. Was this one of the honeymooners, Glen or Bessie Hyde? 3 weeks later, Dr. Walter Birkby identified the remains as male, approximately 6 feet tall and around 21 years old. Additionally, there was a bullet found in the skull, I'm presuming the cranium, which, if you don't know what the difference is between that, cranium is everything above your mandible, so it's the maxillary up, because your jaw will fall off. So a complete skull
Cool.
includes the mandible. There's your little anthropological fact for today. So, additionally, the skeleton had a silver belt buckle similar to that of Glen Hyde's. Rumors immediately begin to swirl and bubble that the skeleton is Glen Hyde. Then a story of crime of passion began to spread like wildfire. Looking back to a woman who'd told a small group of passengers on a river trip she was Bessie Hyde. Was she actually really Bessie Hyde? And in the time of her need and desperate struggle with the rapids, she looked to a hero who happened to be Emery Kolb. So there's a
The plot
theory
thickens.
that Emery Kolb has killed Glen Hyde and rescued Bessie when he's
Oh,
married
my
and has a
savior.
child. However, when Dr. Brigby used a message of transposing a photo of Glen over a photo of the skull, it was determined that this was not Glen Hyde.
Okay.
Moreover, with the information given by Emery, it was likely that Emery Kolb had taken the remains in the instance someone came looking for somebody.
Interesting. Grandpa, what are you doing?
However, Glen was the only known missing male in the Grand Canyon at the time. So, I'm not really sure who the skeleton belongs to, and I'm presuming that they are still unidentified. If not, I will go and check and see, but I wasn't finding anything on it, so just a heads up. There's unidentified remains.
Perfect.
Now, over the years, the woman proclaiming to be Bessie Hyde's story evolved and was retold many times during river trips that were hosted by Rick Petrello, who even recalls telling a hybrid version of Glen falling overboard and being swept off, never to be seen again. And with so, Bessie got herself to shore and left, joining a small Mormon community in southern Utah or Nevada. One author, Scott Thibony of Flagstaff, Arizona, became fascinated with this tale and began to look into the story of the woman, Liz Cutler, who, when asked about that night, stated irritatedly that she had a fabulous memory and never heard of Bessie Hyde in her life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay. In 1987, at 10 o'clock, nearly 20,330,000 Americans tuned into the one show that we all woke up to at some point as a child when we left the TV going, Unsolved Mysteries. I know we probably woke up to George Lopez a little bit, but I remember waking up to Unsolved Mysteries all the time. George Lopez was always on. It just depended on where I like ended up for the night. Like if I was on like Nickelodeon, it was George Lopez, but if I was somewhere else like CW or something like that, I'm waking up to Unsolved Mysteries and being like, what are we talking about? Possessions?
Mm-hmm.
So throughout the episode of Unsolved Mysteries, the suspense is stacked and it's spoken about the two instances we just went over. However, it's painting Glen Hyde as a bull-headed brute and Liz Cutler as actually being Bessie Hyde.
Interesting.
To which Glen's nephew, who's appalled and confused, calls his uncle Leonard Emerson, who I presume is the son of Edna Hyde, in Twin Falls to ask if Glen was actually like that. To which Leonard answers, no, he wasn't like that at all. Additionally, Liz's story began to crumble, and she stated later that she had made it up to add some theatrics to the story that evening. Stating further, why can't they just leave me alone? Can't a person make one mistake? I'm like, I wouldn't really interject myself in a missing persons case that's like renowned. I wouldn't do this to begin with. Like, why put that hope out there for somebody? That's cruel.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking like she just did one silly trying to scare a bunch of people, but
yeah,
it messes with people's heads.
It messes with people's heads, and you still got family members out there, and you know that. Why would you do that? Now, aside from these two theories, there's some cases of mistaken identity. One was with a Glen Hyde, who had two disappeared in 1928 while rafting in the rivers in Idaho and Canada. He also had apparently attempted the Grand Canyon at some point, but when asked about the river trip by family, he just simply stated it didn't work out. However, this man is Glen William Hyde and not Glen Roland Hyde. And while there are some strange similarities between the two families with like names corresponding and lighting up, the reality is that this is not our Glen Hyde. Another mistaken identity was that of one of the most famous river runners of all time, Georgie Clark, the woman of the river, who passed in 1992. When people were going through her things, they found a copy of the Hyde's marriage certificate in her lingerie drawer. And it's a certified copy from the Twin Falls County Recorder's Book of Marriage Records. However, it was most definitely attained after the creation of a photocopy machine. So, why did Georgie have it? Perhaps it was her personal collection. After all, she lived most of her life on the rivers and touring them. Why not have something of prosperity that adds to river culture? Ultimately, though, we'll never know. What we do know is that Bessie Hyde and Georgie Clark are not the same woman. Georgie had blue-gray eyes, while Bessie's, based off of photos, were likely a very deep chocolate brown. Bessie also had a delicate upturned nose, while Georgie had a little bit of a schnoz. Additionally, the height didn't match, with Georgie being 5 inches taller than Bessie Hyde. Then there's the Enrico Havarum theory. Enrico was working his way across northern Arizona in the 1920s, making shady deals with the Anglos and Native Americans alike. By 1928, Enrico was holding up in the Hualapai Reservation near Travertine Canyon. Known to be quite the ladies' man, Enrico may have gotten a glimpse of the wee Bessie and taken an opportunity, seizing the unique opportunity to kill Glen and then go south with Bessie. And it stands to reason, as neither the Hydes or Enrico Harvem have ever been seen since. So, some people play this out as
Mm.
being like, oh, he saved her. Like, she was distraught and scared, and he saved her. In my mind, if a man's coming out of nowhere that doesn't know you and is coming to rescue you, it's
Danger.
probably not a rescue scenario. It's probably
No.
not.
I don't really think she needed to be rescued. I mean,
I mean,
Bessie's a she's
yeah,
she's something else.
she's
Like
something
she's
else.
tough. She's going down the river with her husband. They're
Yeah.
chilling, fishing, doing husband wife stuff
Mm-hmm.
on a river.
Oh, absolutely. I'm like,
It's wild.
she knew what she was getting herself into. They did the research for it.
Yeah, she already got out of one abusive relationship. I don't think if there's a hinkling of this other guy, just no, Hyde is fine. Like,
Yeah. Which, speaking of the other abusive relationship, I forgot to put this in there. But they did go talk to Earl Hemlick at one point, asking, like, what do you think happened to Bessie? And there's theories behind that maybe he, like, stalked and killed them. It's not likely that that happened. But when asked what he thought, he went, I don't care. She's dead. And hung up the phone.
wow.
I'm like, that's fucking cold.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Brad Dimmick and his wife, Jerry Ledbetter, took the same trip down the Colorado River in a sweep scow they had constructed themselves. It was a hard and laborious process, which saw many of times the seasoned river rafters that they are being thrown from the boat. They made it down to Diamond Creek, and without the ship taking too much damage as a whole, they both understood the theory behind why using a scow could be beneficial for whitewater rafting. However, that theory should not have been done out of practice, as the boat will give you quite a beating on a regular basis if you do not know what you're doing. And Dimmick
Ooh.
even states that from what they experienced, it could have well been the boat that killed Glen and Bessie. However, Dimmick also theorizes that he may have missed some crucial steps or some basic point technique, and he takes off to Middle Fork of the Salmon River to go down some of the whitewater rapids with an experienced sweeps boatman. And he found that while the boat works great in this type of rapid on the Salmon River, and at times seems to glide faster than the river itself, even the sweeps boatman stated that he would not take this type of boat anywhere near the Grand Canyon, even if it was a modern day inflatable style of the boat. So,
So they didn't know that they were doomed from the start.
yeah, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dimmick did return to the Colorado River at mile 232, which had a tough terrain to begin with, and he questioned if perhaps the rope from the bowline pulled the two overboard during a lining attempt. However, he then questions, like, why wouldn't you let go? And then the theory pops into his head, unless the rope was gripping them instead.
The rope that they cut.
The rope that they cut.
The rope that they cut.
Additionally, Dimmick makes mentions of fanged rocks within the pass where it would be a perfect scow trap. While the scow may have survived hitting this, it's very possible that one or both of the passengers from the ship could have easily been injured, thrown over, and where there's calmer water up ahead where that scow stopped, if they're injured, they can't swim to shore. And in turn, they just continue down the stream in the current.
That would not be a fun way to go.
No.
Oh.
Regardless, though, no bodies were ever located. And if any had washed up, they would have been in the lower Grand Canyon, where buzzards and other scavengers may have picked at the remains. And whatever was left behind was scattered in the June flood that saw over 110,000 cubic feet per second water being pushed through the Colorado River and into Mexico.
Wow.
It would be amazing if a body were to be recovered at all. which also begs the question with the leather jacket that was seen floating down by Boulder Canyon. Could a leather jacket float through the river without a body to buoy it up?
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. I feel like leather,
Mm-hmm.
like genuine leather, that's going down, right?
Yeah.
Unless you got a torso
Or
somewhere in
something
there.
bloating to hold it up.
Ew. Oh,
Yeah.
bloaters.
Sorry.
Oh God, nightmare,
And
nightmare.
unfortunately, the one that was wearing the leather jacket was Bessie. So,
Oh no, no.
yeah. I'm like, oh no.
God,
So,
they're just ripped apart by the river,
mm-hmm.
allegedly.
So Sarah, what do
Wow.
you think happened?
Oh, I think being knocked overboard. Because you know, I don't know. During other parts of the story, the one where like Bessie has to like take control of the boat and she doesn't
Mm-hmm.
know how she did it. Yeah, you know, it probably would have had to have happened more than once.
Yeah.
And so, what if this is the one time where, you know, Hyde gets knocked in the water and she's like trying to run after her husband? She's like, no. And she can't get control of the boat. She can't get him back on. Everything's just falling to pieces. She has to focus on one or another. And everything just nightmare, nightmare, nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that.
And yeah, something happens. Maybe they both go in, but those rapids are aggressive. They're scary.
Mm-hmm.
Like rivers are not something to really be. I guess you could play in a river, but you shouldn't play in those parts of the river. You will be
No.
gone in like two
No.
seconds. Yeah,
Super calm water where you can touch the bottom. Go crazy.
exactly. Yeah, but when you actually start to see the white water, that's when you want to not go anywhere near
Yeah. It's
the
usually
river.
not a good sign. Or like a fast moving current because honest to God, like most people don't understand because we get floods in or we I used to get floods in Havasu all the time. I don't live there anymore. But the city itself is like carved out to handle the floods. Like it just follows the natural path down from the mountains. And there are people that
Mm-hmm.
drown every year when the floods come through because they're like, oh, it's just a little bit of water over the street and it's just rushing by. And it's like, I've watched people at the wash that I used to live by go walking through this water. First off, it's muddy. You can't fucking see anything in there. You don't know if there's nails. You don't know if there's broken glass. You don't know if something's coming at you, and they just go walking across like it's nothing, and they're like struggling to get across, and you can usually tell by the time that they make it about halfway that they're like, oh, this is a bad idea. But
Oh.
people literally will get swept up with just like a foot of water rushing by just because it is moving so fast. That's why like when you see fast water, you do not go in it because it will literally just pick you up and carry you.
Mm-hmm. No, water is scary.
Water is scary. A lot of people are like,
Water
"Oh,
is
water's fun.
scary.
We go swimming." No, no, no. As a personally, as a swimmer myself, no. I don't mess around when it comes to fast moving water, and you best know what you're doing when you're going through that type of thing because you need to know what to do. And please, dear God, please, life jackets are not what they were in the 1920s. They are so much more fashionable nowadays. You can get it in purple, pink, blue, green, whatever color. You can get it freaking tie dyed. Wear a life jacket. Dear God, wear a life jacket.
I mean, I've spent like a significant amount of my time just messing around in lakes and rivers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you definitely know when you don't step in or you don't put your full body in. Sometimes it's cute. You're like, oh, look at this. I'm gonna stick my feet in the river. They're
Yeah.
immediately just like launched to the side. And you're like, holy shit, that's so funny. But like, if your whole body went down with it, you would be down the river.
Yeah. And then you're like, I gotta float on
Like,
my back
oh
now. And like, God, it's gonna hurt when I break my legs, but hopefully my skull will be okay.
yeah. Well, plus there's so much in it. Like, I feel like half of the fear of water that someone might have isn't the water; it's what's inside the water. So rocks, twigs, the whole trees that are just somehow sideways.
And submerged
There's
like
so many
in the
different things that you
gravel and God
encounter.
knows what else.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So many things just waiting to unalive you in a river.
Yeah, I think with this case, I'd assume that they probably perished, maybe not too far from where their boat was found.
Yeah.
I would assume that. I would assume that first, and foremost. Assume, because I
Yeah.
know if I knew someone, or someone was like, "Hey, you're something. Come help my kid." That's not necessarily the conclusion you want to jump to immediately. So I
Mhm.
understand sweeping the area and trying to find like anything that they could have left behind that could have like, oh, they're out of the water, they're out of the river, but
Yeah.
I think it's more likely than not that that was where they died.
Yeah, and I think at that last campsite, like what was found was like a can of like baked beans, which had been like eaten, but the can had been left there.
E
That was it. And
Perfect.
then there's like footprints up to the ridge to check out the rapids, but even like I think Dimmick mentions how if you don't hike far enough up, you're not going to see part of this rapid and you will be caught off guard at 232. And
Okay.
honestly, I think that's probably what happened is at 232 they hit something that they weren't expecting. One went overboard and it may very well have been Glenn, and this time Bessie couldn't get him a rope in time. And in that sheer panic and that lovesick despair of like I'm gonna watch my loved one die, I need to do something, she jumps in after him.
I would not hesitate. I'm stupid.
Yeah, no, I'm like I've
Gee.
I've had the lovesick goggles on before, and I've had like that like oh my god, I would take a bullet for this person. Absolutely would
Oh
launch
God,
myself.
I feel that way about friends and family, and
Mhm.
like if you fell into the river, I'm going in after you. We're both dying.
We're both dying. Sarah, why aren't you on the boat? I didn't want to die alone.
It's like
Sarah,
we're
I'm
both
fine.
going,
It's
girl.
like
Either we're
calm
getting
water.
out, or it's like 2 feet of water.
Boat's
You're
gone
like, I
down the
can't
river.
really don't drown.
Oh my god. The sad thing is I'm the better swimmer probably too.
Yeah, yeah, you
So
are.
you would
You
be like,
definitely
here
are.
I am. I'm here to help you. Like, just drag me down.
You have to drag me out of the water.
Yeah. You've made this harder for me. I don't care. You're alive.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I think that it was something like that happened. Or in the case of the rope, like getting accidentally tangled around them and they both went off. And then they were simply stuck at the bottom of that rope and they cut it loose.
Yeah.
Because even like a knot, if it's frayed enough, like if it's wet, it's gonna hold tight. But like you can definitely feel some give if it's lodged somewhere. And they're pulling at this and it's just not going anywhere. I'm like, that
Hmm.
to me says that there's something at the other end.
Yeah. Well, they've also been on this journey for a while. They've
Mm-hmm.
been scouting for a while. I feel like at some point you get confident enough in your ability that you might let a thing or two slide.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that doesn't end too well.
No, no. It
Yeah.
it becomes complacency, which you should never have when you're dealing with something dangerous. Like
Yeah.
you should have
Yeah.
your wits about you at all times. And that's not to say that they got complacent. Like they may have had their wits about them. And
Oh,
we talked about
absolutely.
it
Or
in episode 1 how exhausted they were at times. I'm like, maybe they were
that's what
just
I'm
too
thinking.
tired to do
To
this.
hike all the way up this crazy ridge and then
Mm-hmm.
look down. They probably got up to a certain point and they're like, we can see enough. Like, okay, so here's what we're doing through here. And then they get down there, and then there is just that one rapid that they did not see
Mm-hmm.
that absolutely spins everything out of control for them.
Oh, absolutely. And then they're like,
Yeah.
whoa, what just happened?
Yeah.
But I do have to side. I heard the first one from, I think it was Sarah Turney on disappearances of either Ben or, sorry, either Glenn or Bessie going into the water after the other. I'm like, I really think that's probably what happened. Of
Hmm.
just could not get them back on board. And it's that blind, I love you to death. I'm going to get you.
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. Well, it sounds like he was more so the captain of the voyage too. Like
Mm-hmm.
she's not going anywhere without him, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's going in after him. I think if he's the one who's knocked off, and I think if she was knocked off, I don't think Glenn would hesitate. I think he would just dive into the water to
Yeah.
get her. He seems kind of like he's very educated, but there's also like this like young foolhardy, dare I say, energy about him where it's like he is willing to become knowledgeable about all these difficult things, but at the same time, I think he probably would make the decision to jump in after her.
Oh yeah. Well, even at that point, I don't
Yeah.
think it's even a decision. It becomes that second nature of like my loved ones in the water. I need to get them. I need to get them now.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna
Oh
die.
yeah.
I need to help them.
Mhm. Sometimes you don't have time to react and you just react, and
Hmm.
that's okay.
That's okay. It happens.
I've never been in a situation where I've been in danger on a river. And I've like floated down rivers before.
Hmm.
At one point, me and my brother found a truck that was in a river, and we're like fucking diving down, pulling car parts and shit out, taking it back to our mom. We're like, look what we found. And she's like, yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. That's not smart.
It was in the Thompson River too, and
Oh
it was
my
like an
god.
older truck. Yeah, it was like a truck from the 80s. We
It
were
was
just pulling parts out.
probably went down in the Great Thompson Flood of like what 1960.
Yeah, it could have. It could
Yeah.
have. I'm just guessing that it was from the 80s. It looked very boxy. And
Yeah.
any car that's boxy, I immediately
You
think
know that
80s.
that one really bad flood before we had our really bad flood in 2013,
Oh, yeah,
2014.
yeah. That was wild. I still meet people. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh,
I just remember I was coming back from Loveland High and I was the last one across the Big Thompson before they shut it off over at Taft. I went, oh. And the only reason I made it across was
leaving.
because I had the sheriff's daughter with me. I'm like, please. He's like, what are you doing? Get home now. I'm like, we tried to leave early.
I promise.
I promise.
Oh, that was bad.
Hmm.
I think that's one of probably the worst things I've ever seen as far as like driving up. Like you couldn't go to Bailey for forever. Oh
Oh
my
yeah,
god, they
Lions
had
was
that
shut
walled off.
down. We were like cut
Yeah.
off from Longmont. Like we were cut off from a lot of stuff. I know that Loveland was cut off from Fort Collins for a while, like where I was at. We had
Fort
South
Collins
Loveland
is
and
really
North
bad.
Loveland for a while.
Yeah, well, Fort Collins has always been bad for flooding, even when it
Hmm.
just rains a lot. Like you'll hydroplane in the streets and stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
Oh,
Uh, but ultimately, though, this case will likely never have answers. There will always be theories that will grow and evolve throughout the years. So, if you guys want to, you're more than welcome to comment on this video on YouTube and share your theory of what you think might happen.
I would love to hear more opinions on this because
Yeah.
I try to be a realist.
I I definitely have to be a realist on this one. I don't think they hiked out. I don't think Bessie murdered Glenn. I don't think Emery murdered Glenn. I'm not really sure about Enrico, to be perfectly honest. That could be a very, very viable possibility considering we've heard stories of like Israel who comes walking in, kills somebody in front of like their spouse, and like the other one's standing there like, what the fuck just happened? And
Hmm.
before they have time to react, they're being hauled off. It's a very, very, very big possibility that that could have happened. So I'm like, I'm not entirely A or B on that one.
You're not willing to dismiss it. I
I'm
think
not
that's
willing
what
to
it is.
dismiss it. It's got enough coincidence to be kind of like, yeah, that could have happened.
Yeah. God, that would be so much worse than just
Yeah.
jumping in the river.
Oh my god. I'm like, I could not imagine
Oh,
because you know that what most likely happened after that, like she's gonna have a horrible time until he decides to basically get rid of her, and it's like, oh
mm-hmm.
no, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
It's all freaky.
it's all freaky. So many theories,
Mm-hmm.
so little time. And if I missed
Mm-hmm.
one, make sure that you share it with me so I can go read about it. Thank you again for listening to Spattered. Please make sure to follow the show on Facebook and Instagram at Spattered Podcast and on X at Spattered Pod. If you're enjoying the show, make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts from. If you're watching on YouTube, like this video, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to be notified when the show goes live or drops a video. As always, if you have a case request, any questions, or are interested in sponsoring the show, please email me at spatteredpodcast@gmail.com. Spattered is a true crime podcast hosted by Caitlin Gardner and Sarah Ray. The research and edits for this episode were done by Caitlin Gardner. All the music for the show was done by Lucio Cardenas. We'll see you next time. Stay safe out there. And remember, the truth is always in the blood.